Hello, ladies and gents. I don't know even if anybody ever really did that. It's a stereotype of an old vaudeville comedian, and excuse me, we're at a point now where you say vaudeville, and a lot of people don't know what it means. They've never heard of it. But that is a stereotype of a vaudeville comedian beginning his act by saying, "Good evening, ladies and gents." And I think the idea is to tie it to Groucho Marx, not Karl Marx, but Groucho, who with Chico, Harpo, and sometimes Zeppo formed a comedy team called the Marx Brothers. And those who equate violent, foul language with funny, which is a stupid equivalency, they won't find the Marx Brothers funny. Those who look for what's funny should enjoy the Marx Brothers. I was about to say will, you heard me start to say it, but I'll say should. I'm sorry, my allergies are still messing with me. It's been almost a week. The big attack is nearly gone, but not quite. But they were funny. I don't remember which of their movies it was, but there's a scene in one of the Marx Brothers movies where Chico, who played excellent piano, plays it so vigorously he smashes the thing apart, and Harpo, who really could play the harp, takes the strings and plays the harp with them. And I'm not sure. I suspect you couldn't really do that with a piano, but it's amazing. And they were funny. Groucho is the one who said he received an invitation to join a club and sent back a telegram saying, "I will never be a member of any club," I got that wrong. "I will never join any club which would have me as a member." I'm not doing his accent very well. What I want to do today is look at a part of Psalm 115 and discuss the sovereignty of God. And let's see, let's start with verse 1, and just to get the context of the section, we'll go down to verse 8. And I'm reading from the Legacy Standard Bible, by the way, if you're curious. "Not to us, O Yahweh, not to us, but to your name give glory, because of your loving kindness, because of your truth. Why should the nations say, 'Where now is their God?' But our God is in the heavens. He does whatever he pleases. Their idols are silver and gold, the work of man's hands. They have mouths, but they do not speak. They have eyes, but they do not hear. They have eyes, but they do not see. They have ears, but they do not hear. They have noses, but they do not smell. As for their hands, they do not feel. As for their feet, they do not walk. They do not make a sound with their throat. Those who make them will become like them, everyone who trusts in them." Now there is material enough there for multiple sermons of an hour each. And by the way, if you don't like sermons that last more than 20 or 30 minutes, you wouldn't have enjoyed the Apostle Paul. He preached one sermon for so long that a young man went to sleep and fell out the window and died. After Paul, by the grace of God, brought the young man back to life, he continued preaching till daybreak. There can be a too long sermon when the preacher has said all he has to say and just keeps on and going anyways. But a sermon is not long simply because of what the clock says. But I'm not going to do that. Instead, I want to go back to verse 3. Our God is in the heavens. He does whatever he pleases. I have the impression from decades of talking to Christians online and in person, reading what various authors have said, that a lot of professing Christians don't really grasp the difference between sovereignty and omnipotence. I'm sorry, I keep a coughing. It feels like there's something in my throat. So first I want to explain the difference between them. Omnipotence is God's ability, what he can do, his power. Omni, is it Greek? Latin? I don't remember. But omni means all, everything. Omnipresence means God is everywhere. Omniscience means God knows all things. Omnipotence means God has all power. Whatever he chooses to do, he has sufficient and more than sufficient power to do. Sovereignty is his authority or his right to do whatever he chooses. The British sovereign is not really sovereign. Charles III does not rule. He reigns, but his role is largely ceremonial and symbolic. Take this for instance. Once Parliament passes a law, it must receive what they call the King's Assent, A-S-S-E-N-T. Before Elizabeth died, it was the Queen's Assent. It must receive the King's Assent in order to become a law. But no monarch in recent times has ever not given his or her assent to the law, except when the Prime Minister said this law did become law. We let it go through the process for various reasons, but we do not wish it to become binding. Please do not give your assent. And at that point, the king does what the Prime Minister says and withholds his assent. Otherwise, it's essentially routine. The law lands on the king's desk. He gives his assent. It's a matter of form. The king has no real veto power, unlike in the United States. Of course, the Prime Minister in the UK is the one who's really equivalent to the President of the United States. If he doesn't want a law to go through, that's a whole nother deal. God is not a constitutional monarch. He really is sovereign. He is an absolute monarch, and unlike human absolute monarchs who still have to deal with politicking in the court, politicking among their ministers before they give their absolute word, God does not take counsel of anyone. Who will advise God on the best course to pursue? Do the angels know better than he does what's right and what's wrong, what's good and what's bad? Do we have sufficient knowledge and wisdom to instruct God on how he should govern his universe? No. God has the power to do whatever he pleases. He also has the right to do whatever he pleases. That means that if God chooses to call some to salvation and pass others by, he has the right to do it. And it's in salvation that people get the most exercised against divine sovereignty. We as fallen human beings want to think that we make the choice. We don't put it this way. We don't think of it this way. But what we're really saying by our theology, many of us, is that I get to tell God whether I will be saved or not. I will dictate to God whether the death of his Son will be effective in me. It doesn't work that way. God is sovereign. If he chooses to call you to himself, he has that right, and you should be grateful for it. If he chooses to pass someone else by and let him go to the reward of damnation which that person deserves, has earned, you should be grateful that God has called you and that he is manifesting his justice and his holiness and his righteousness in the destruction of the sinner who by his own choice has already rejected God. I'm not saying sovereignty is an easy doctrine, but it's easy to understand what it is. It's easy to understand that it is the way things are with God. I hope you agree that God is sovereign and that he has the absolute right to determine whether you will or will not be saved. Shall the creature rebel against the Creator and win? Who are you, O man, said Paul in the book of Romans, who answers back to God? Does he not have the right to do with his own as he sees fit? Does not the potter have the right to make out of the same lump of clay one vessel for honor and one for dishonor, one a vase to hold a bouquet of beautiful flowers and the other a chamber pot? Does the potter not have that right? If you make a chair with your own hands, it is your property. Do you not have the right to sit in it, to sell it, to give it away, or to burn it as you see fit? Does God then have fewer rights than you? Does God have less authority over his creation than you do over yours? May it never be. It makes no sense. It runs against our fallen natures to accept this, but we must, because it's biblical. That's the first and primary and paramount reason. But also because it simply makes sense. To think of a God who does not have authority to do as he pleases with that which he himself created by the word of his power is to say that God, after all, is not God. And you may disbelieve that God, let me rephrase that so it's clearer. You may believe that God does not exist, but if you accept that he does exist, you cannot consistently and rationally believe that he cannot do as he pleases with that which he has created. God is sovereign. He has the right to do with you and to do with me exactly as he pleases, no matter what we think. I praise God that he has called me. I pray that he will call you if he has not done so already.